I'm 76 years old, and I'm about to tell you something that contradicts the advice I followed my entire adult life. I stayed married for my kids. I thought I was doing the noble thing, the selfless thing. I thought I was protecting them from the pain of divorce. But what I actually did was teach them that loveless commitment is normal. That silent resentment is what marriage looks like. And now I'm watching them repeat the same mistakes in their own relationships. If you're staying in an unhappy marriage for your children, thinking you're sparing them something, listen to me carefully. Because I did exactly that for 29 years. And the damage I thought I was preventing, I caused anyway, just in ways I never anticipated. Maybe you tell yourself the same things I did, that kids need both parents under one roof, that you'll wait until they're older, until they're out of the house, until the timing is better, that your unhappiness is a small price to pay for their stability. I believe all of that. And I was so focused on what divorce might do to them that I never stopped to consider what staying would do instead. Her name was Linda. We married young, 23 and 24. It was good for a few years, or good enough. But by the time our first child arrived, we were already growing apart. Different values, different temperaments, different ideas about everything from money to religion to how to spend a Saturday. We didn't hate each other. We just didn't fit. When our daughter Emma was 3, I seriously considered leaving. The disconnection between Linda and me had become obvious. We barely talked except about logistics. We didn't laugh together. We slept on opposite sides of the bed like strangers sharing a hotel room. I wasn't happy, and I knew she wasn't either. But then I'd look at Emma, this tiny person with her mother's eyes and my messy hair, and I'd think about what divorce would do to her. Splitting time between houses, missing one of us at bedtime, growing up in a broken home. I couldn't do it. I thought I was being strong, putting her needs first. So I stayed. 3 years later, we had our son, Marcus. And by then, staying had become even more justified in my mind. 2 kids now. Even more reason to keep the family together. I told myself things would get better. That once the stress of young children passed, Lena and I would reconnect. That we just needed to get through this phase. But it didn't get better, it got worse. The resentment grew. She resented me for things I couldn't even name. I resented her for the same. We developed this cold politeness, speaking to each other like colleagues forced to work on a project neither of us wanted, and the kids were right there watching all of it. I remember thinking I was doing a good job hiding it from them. We didn't scream at each other. We didn't throw things or call each other names. We were civil, functional. I thought that was enough. I thought as long as we weren't openly hostile, they wouldn't know how empty our marriage was. But children aren't stupid. They feel everything. I see that now. Emma was maybe 8 when she asked me why I never hugged mommy. We were in the car, just the 2 of us, and she asked it so casually, like she was asking why the sky was blue. I told her mommy and I weren't really huggers, that different people showed love in different ways. She accepted that answer. But I think about that moment now, and I want to go back and tell her the truth, that her mother and I had stopped touching each other years ago, that we were living parallel lives in the same house, The routine became everything. Lynn and I barely spoke directly. We'd communicate through the kids. Tell your father dinner is ready. Ask your mother if she needs anything from the store. We became experts at avoidance. She had her life, her book club, her volunteering, her friends. I had mine. Work, weekend projects, coaching Marcus's baseball team. We filled our time with everything except each other. The kids grew up in that environment. They grew up thinking that's what marriage was. A practical arrangement. Two people coexisting, cooperating on logistics but never really connecting. Never laughing together. Never showing affection. Never working through problems, just avoiding them. I justified it constantly. I'd see other kids from divorced families struggling, and I'd tell myself, well, see, we made the right choice. I'd hear statistics about children of divorce and feel validated. I was protecting them. We were protecting them. That's what I kept telling myself every time I felt that hollow ache of living with someone I didn't love anymore. But I wasn't protecting them from anything. I was just teaching them the wrong lessons. Emma got married when she was 26. Nice guy. Stable job. They seemed happy at first. But over the years, I started noticing things. The way they talked to each other. Polite but distant. The way they seemed to coordinate their lives without ever really connecting. It was like watching a mirror of my own marriage, and it made me sick. I asked her once if everything was okay. She said yes, said they were fine. That marriage was work, and they were working at it. The exact words I'd used for decades. And I realized she'd learned that from me. She'd learned that marriage was something you endure, not something you enjoy. That you stay even when you're unhappy, because that's what commitment means. Marcus was worse. He's 38 now and he's never been in a relationship longer than 2 years. He doesn't trust it, doesn't believe in it. He told me once, after a few drinks, that he didn't see the point of marriage. You and Mom stayed together and you were miserable, he said. What's the point of making it legal? I wanted to argue with him, but he was right. We were miserable. And he'd grown up watching that misery, absorbing it, learning that's what partnership looked like. Now he keeps everyone at arm's length because he thinks the alternative is what his mother and I had. The real breaking point came 5 years ago. Linda and I were at Emma's house for Sunday dinner. Emma and her husband had just had another one of their polite, distant exchanges. No warmth, no eye contact, just coordinating who would do what. And Linda and I glanced at each other across the table, and in that moment, I saw the same recognition in her eyes that I felt. We did this. We taught her this later that night back at home. Linda and I had the first real conversation we'd had in years. We talked about what we'd done, how we'd stayed together for the kids and somehow managed to hurt them anyway. How we'd given them a model of marriage that was worse than divorce might have been. How we'd wasted almost 30 years of our lives in a loveless arrangement and called it sacrifice. We separated 6 months later. It felt absurd getting divorced in our 70s. Like closing the barn door decades after the horses had escaped. But we did it anyway. Not because we hated each other. We never had. We divorced because we finally admitted that staying had been a mistake. That we'd done it for the wrong reasons. That we'd hurt our children in the name of protecting them. Emma cried when we told her. Not because she was sad we were splitting up. She cried because she was angry. Angry that we'd waited so long. Angry that we'd stayed unhappy all those years. You taught me that's what I was supposed to do, she said. You taught me to settle, to stay even when it's empty. And now I don't know how to leave. That conversation broke something in me. Because she was right. I'd modeled endurance instead of happiness, obligation instead of love. And now she was trapped in the same pattern, thinking it was the right thing to do. Here's what I know now, what I wish I'd understood when my kids were young. Children don't need you to stay in a marriage that doesn't work. They need to see what healthy love looks like. They need to see two people who choose each other, who respect each other, who show affection and work through problems, and genuinely enjoy being together. And if you can't give them that, if your marriage is dead and you're just going through the motions, staying doesn't protect them. It teaches them that this is normal, that this is what they should accept for themselves. That love doesn't matter as much as obligation. I thought I was being selfless, but staying in a loveless marriage isn't selfless. It's cowardice disguised as sacrifice. I was afraid of the disruption divorce would cause, afraid of being the bad guy, afraid of the logistics and the judgment and the uncertainty. So I stayed. And I told myself it was for them. But it wasn't for them, it was for me. Because leaving would have been harder, scarier, more uncomfortable. And I chose my comfort over their well-being. I chose the familiar misery over the unknown possibility of something better. And they paid the price. If you're watching this and you're staying in a dead marriage for your kids, ask yourself honestly, what are you teaching them? Are you showing them what love looks like? What respect looks like? What it means to honor yourself and your needs? Or are you showing them that marriage is something you endure? That it's normal to be unhappy as long as you're doing your duty? Children are resilient. They can handle divorce. They can adapt to two homes, to shared custody, to a new normal. What they can't handle, what stays with them forever, is growing up in a house without love, without warmth, without any model of what a real partnership should be. I watch Emma now, stuck in a marriage that looks exactly like mine did. I see Marcus unable to trust or commit because he never saw a relationship worth having. And I know this is my legacy. This is what I gave them by staying. Not stability, not protection, just a broken blueprint for love. Linda and I are cordial now. We see each other at family events. We're kinder to each other divorced than we were married, which tells you everything you need to know. And sometimes I wonder what our lives would have looked like if we'd been brave enough to leave when we first knew it was over. If we'd shown our kids that it's okay to walk away from something that isn't working, that happiness matters, that love should be real, not just performed. I'm 76 years old and I stayed married for the kids. And what it cost all of us was the chance to see what real love looks like. What it cost them was the ability to recognize it, trust it, and fight for it in their own lives. I thought I was protecting them from pain, but all I did was teach them to accept it. That's something I'll regret for whatever time I have left.